So last night, after my mental illness fucking thing, I do this whole thing about the God of the Islam about the God of the Islam of the North American tradition or the North American tradition of Islam's Allah. That and I think I've done it before. That it is based upon principles in which are living principles which manifest themselves in person. That person is of the Asiatic black man and woman who is God, whose proper name is Allah. You could break it down into a more scientific term. I mean, the scientific terms, you know what I'm saying? Like, man, the first man to perceive reality as we perceive reality. So, therefore, the creators of our reality, the mimetic and genetic creators of all mankind, regardless of ethnicity, is the so-called Asiatic black man and woman, or the so-called African man and woman. Y chromosomal Adam and mitochondrial Eve, or an Asiatic black man and woman, or a black man and woman. That's easily determined. So the God of the North American tradition of Islam, the Allah, is not a person, it's a living principle in which God in person lives by. And that principle that he lives by is the great peace, which is Islam. And in submitting so to that great peace, he is a practicing Muslim. This is a cultural determination, not a religious determination based upon the teachings of Elijah Muhammad and then, Clarence Jowar Smith or Clarence the Father of Allah. So, I mean, there's a differentiation. And then, I talk about a feminine principle because I talk about entering into something versus having something enter into you. You enter into a feminine principle, you have a masculine principle enter into you. Now, one is, kind of gay, and one is against the natural order, and one is with the natural order, metaphorically speaking. So, Islam is also known as the natural way. So, the natural way would be to enter into a woman, the sacred mosque, the supreme wisdom, the sacred feminine, which is also the Hagia Sophia, which is the first so-called Christian, church built in Constantinople, which is actually a Islamic or a Gnostic, and we could also go into the, a Gnostic temple. We can also go into the teachings of the scholarship of Dr. Richard D. King, where he kind of shows you that the teachings of Elijah Muhammad are equivalent to the teachings of Gnosticism, and that you can find not some of them, a lot of the same teachings in Gnosticism as you can find in the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. You can also find them in Sufism. That's why it's my belief, or at least my theory, because I don't fuck with belief, is my theory. And a lot of people think that, Wallace Farad Muhammad came from either Turkey or Syria. Turkey and Syria are, well-known areas in which Sufi Muslims occupy. And he was also, you also got to look at the fact that, there were Muslims here as early as the 1800s that had absolutely no message for the Asiatic black man in relationship to Islam being his natural religion. It's not until after Wallace Farad Muhammad and then Elijah Muhammad had passed that Saudi Arabian traditional Muslims started coming on to North American traditional Muslims through, Warith Deen Muhammad, that we were somehow misled by Elijah Muhammad based upon this nationalism and this, based upon the nationalist motives of Elijah Muhammad, even though Arabs have a nationalist movement too, or motive as well, and want all of us to align themselves with that Arab national agenda. That's why Arab clothing, Arab culture is the center of the Saudi Arabian tradition of Islam, because it's an attempt to promote Arab culture. You have a lot of, like Saddam Hussein wasn't necessarily a religious Muslim. He was a cultural Muslim in the sense that he saw that Islam, or the Saudi Arabian tradition of Islam, promoted an Arab agenda. So, you can see that Arab agenda in brothers like in And there was like Zachariah Hawass, the head of Egyptian antiquity, Ministry of Antiquity. You could see that there is a broad Arab agenda, nationalist agenda, in which they insult us about having a nationalist agenda associated to our practice of Islam or towards our archaeology or whatever it is. Dude, everybody has an ethnic agenda. And that ethnic agenda is associated with a national agenda. Don't get it fucked up. So that's the argument, you know what I'm saying? And then the 10 points that, you know, and Wesley Muhammad has spent more time, you know what I'm saying, debunking the 10 points and showing that the 10 points aren't valid. And that possibly it was Warth who was hoodwinked and not us that was hoodwinked. But that's a whole other thing. You know, the vowel points. We move the vowel points, you know, Allah can easily be Allah. There is the only reason why there is a masculine pronoun used to describe Allah in the Bible is because Saudis, when in translation, they chose to use a masculine pronoun. But there is no use of either a masculine or feminine pronoun in following Allah. It could go either or. So there really isn't any gender associated with Allah. And I see Allah as being genderless, but in action, the genders have an association with the actions of Allah, not necessarily with the person of Allah, because the person of Allah is manifested as the Asiatic black man and woman. So there is a living principle that is Allah, which, you know, in the 5% nation or nation of God's they refer to as the essence. So, and that's derived from the teachings of Elijah Muhammad too. I don't know, maybe this will get on, maybe it won't get on. Because I mean, I recorded, and I was like, I really recorded, and I'm like the same level, voice level, same hand position, everything, and none of that shit had any sound to it. So let's see what happens. You know, again, the European agenda is what the European agenda is. It's attempt to vilify any aspect of an African agenda in relationship to the development of a culture that is counter to the European culture. Because they don't want us to have a counter culture. Even though their culture is counter to our ethnic reality, our mimetic and genetic structures that are traits that denote our ethnicity, and the physiology and psychology that stems from it. You know, this is unkept hair. You know what I'm saying? And by what definition is it unkept? Because I keep this shit. I wash this shit, motherfucking, I manage this shit. She fucking twist the shit, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I haven't put the fucking thing on it and laid it down and shit, but I mean, those are motherfucking methods of keeping. So, unkept is entirely an unfucking goddamn, I mean, her hair is natural right now. She's got a fucking goddamn scarf on it. So there's an attempt to keep it. So, unkept is an entirely inaccurate fucking, you know what I'm saying, adjective or adjective in relationship to the way in which black people keep their hair. It's unkept to the European standards of beauty, of normalcy. And that's why we need, and see, then we get into morality, if people want to get into the morality of, that's why I go with, you know what I'm saying, Clarence after Elijah, because the morality in which we adopted was very European morality. It's not an African morality, and it's counter to African psychology. But it was necessary at the time. At the time of Wallace Farad Muhammad and, you know, Elijah Muhammad is early, that, you know, that suit and tie shit really was necessary. I don't necessarily think that it's right now. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's right for, I mean, we have to evolve as a people, and that was the beginning of our evolutionary process into coming into something that was more ours than theirs. Something that promoted our individuality more than us being a part or a division of, you know, European Americans or some fucking goddamn, you know, perpetual children of European Americans, you know. But, you know, that's me this morning, kind of like, kind of over it, but not over it. Still be saying this shit. We're going to go out today. We're going to be on Hollywood, Highland. Probably be sending some shit from there. We had to take the day off yesterday because, you know, stress be stress.